My own father-in-law, a man of immense wealth and power, whipped my 6-year-old daughter with his belt 47 times. His mother, Emma's great-grandmother, stood there counting every single strike. And my wife, Emma's own mother, watched it all, thinking I was halfway across the country on a business trip. But when I walked through their mansion's front door with 2 police officers, live footage of the horror playing on my phone, my next words left them frozen in terror. I'm Graham French, and at 34, I'd built a career as a forensic accountant. The kind of work that teaches you to see patterns others miss, to follow threads until the whole ugly tapestry reveals itself. But nothing in my professional life prepared me for the world I stumbled into 3 years ago. I stood in Horace Hamilton's study, shaking his hand, while my fiancée, Catherine, beamed beside me, utterly blind to the cold calculation in her father's eyes. The Hamiltons were old money, steeped in pretension. Horace had inherited a pharmaceutical company, building it into a regional powerhouse. Enough to buy a sprawling estate in Connecticut's horse country, enough influence to sit on hospital boards and country club committees. His mother, Marjorie, Catherine's grandmother, had raised her after her parents died. Marjorie was the kind of woman who measured her worth in charity galas and the ability to make servants disappear with a single, icy glance. Catherine was 26 when we met. She worked at an art gallery in Manhattan, and I fell hard for her quiet elegance, the way she seemed to float through the world. It took me 6 months to realize that grace was a survival mechanism. She'd learned to make herself small and agreeable because the Hamiltons demanded nothing less than absolute compliance. The first real crack in their facade came 2 weeks after our daughter, Emma, was born. I'd returned home from a client meeting to find Marjorie in the nursery. Emma was screaming in her crib, and the old woman sat in the rocking chair, stone-faced. Babies need to learn they can't manipulate their caregivers, she'd said when I scooped up my daughter. You're spoiling her already. I'd asked her to leave. Catherine cried for 3 hours that night, convinced her grandmother would never forgive them. I held my wife and wondered what kind of childhood created that level of fear in a grown woman. Incidents accumulated like sediment, each one small enough to dismiss individually. Horace commenting that Emma was getting chunky at her 2nd birthday. Marjorie rearranging our kitchen cabinets because Catherine clearly didn't know proper organization. The bi-weekly dinners at the Hamilton estate felt less like family gatherings and more like performance reviews. Horace held court, dispensing judgments on everything from my career to Emma's table manners. But I was raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to put me through college. She taught me that dignity meant standing your ground, and intelligence meant choosing your battles. I smiled through the dinners, deflected the barbs, and focused on my family. Catherine was in therapy now, slowly unpacking decades of conditioning. Emma was bright and happy, if a bit anxious around her great-grandparents. Things were getting better, or so I thought. Then, 3 months ago, I noticed the bruise. Emma was getting ready for bed, and her pajama sleeve rode up, revealing a dark mark on her upper arm. What happened, sweetheart? I asked, keeping my voice light. I fell at Grammy Marge's house, she said quickly. *2 quickly. Playing in the garden. The bruise was finger-shaped, for distinct marks where someone had grabbed her hard. When I asked Catherine about it, she got defensive. Mother said she fell. Are you calling my grandmother a liar? I'm saying that's not what a fall looks like. We fought, one of our worst arguments. Catherine ultimately took Emma to the pediatrician, who documented the bruise but said it was consistent with a fall or a grab. Impossible to say definitively. Case closed, according to Catherine. Drop it. I don't drop things. It's why I'm good at my job. I started paying closer attention. Emma had been spending more time at the Hamilton estate lately. Catherine was helping Marjorie plan some foundation gala, and it was easier to bring Emma along than find a sitter. I had been traveling more, too, working on a fraud case in Boston. Except that Boston case had wrapped up 2 weeks ago. I'd closed it quietly, told Catherine it was ongoing, and instead of traveling, I'd been doing something else entirely. The nanny cam in Emma's backpack was easy to set up, a button camera that looked like any other, with a wireless transmitter feeding directly to my phone. I felt sick doing it, like I was violating my own daughter's privacy. But the alternative was worse. If something was happening, I needed to know. For the first week, the footage showed nothing unusual. Emma playing in the Hamiltons' game room. Marjorie reading to her. Normal grandparent activities. Then came last Tuesday. I was in my office, reviewing client files, when the motion alert pinged on my phone. I pulled up the feed absently, expecting to see Emma eating lunch or playing. Instead, I watched my daughter's face, contorted in terror. The camera angle was wrong. Emma's backpack was on the floor, knocked aside, but I could hear everything. Marjorie's voice, cold and precise. Lying is a sin, Emma. We do not tolerate it in this family. Horace, off camera, bring me my belt. And then, Catherine's voice. This is what made my blood turn to ice. Daddy, maybe we should just be quiet. Catherine, Horace cut her off. This is how we raised you properly. And it's how Emma will learn. Unless you'd like to question my methods. No, Daddy, I'm sorry. The first crack of leather on skin. Emma's scream. Marjorie counting. 1. I was in my car before the second strike landed. Driving 90 miles an hour toward Connecticut, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. I forced myself to pull over after the 15th strike. Forced myself to think clearly. If I burst in, it would be my word against theirs. They'd lawyer up, claim I was an unfit father, that my paranoia was the real problem. The Hamiltons had money and connections. I had rage, and a nanny cam that might not even be admissible in court depending on Connecticut's recording laws. So I did what I did best. I worked the problem. I called my old friend, Mauricio Cabrera, who'd left forensic accounting for law school and now worked as a prosecutor. I laid out the situation in 3 minutes. Mauricio made 2 calls and gave me an address. The Connecticut State Police Barracks was 20 minutes from the Hamilton estate. Detective Coleman Murphy and Officer Zachary Rivers listened to my story, watched 2 minutes of the live feed on my phone. They were on strike 31 by then. Emma's screams, hoarse now, followed me out to their cruiser. Now, as I pulled through the gates of the Hamilton estate with a police escort, my phone showed strike 45. Marjorie's voice, 45. A pause. This is for your own good, Emma. You will thank us when you're older. Strike. 46, 47. Then silence. Except for Emma's broken sobbing. I parked in the circular driveway, the police cruiser right behind me. My hands were steady now. I'd moved past rage into something colder, more focused. The Hamiltons had made a mistake. They thought they could continue their cycle of abuse, that their money and status made them untouchable. They'd forgotten that I had built my entire career on exposing people who thought they were untouchable. I opened the app on my phone, saved the entire video file to 3 different cloud servers, and emailed copies to myself and Mauricio. Then I walked up the marble steps of the Hamilton mansion and rang the doorbell. The maid, Louisa Cameron, a nervous woman in her 50s who'd worked for the Hamiltons for 2 decades, answered. Her eyes went wide when she saw the police officers. We're here to check on the welfare of Emma French, Detective Murphy said. Is she on the premises? Before Louisa could answer, Marjorie appeared in the foyer, imperious in a cream-colored suit, not a hair out of place. Officers, what is the meaning of this? We have reason to believe a child may be in distress at this address. That's absurd. My great-granddaughter is upstairs taking a nap. Graham, what ridiculous story have you been telling these men? I pulled out my phone, turned it to show the screen. The live feed showed Emma's room now. My daughter curled on the bed, her back bleeding through her dress. Would you like to explain this, Marjorie? Or should we go upstairs and see for ourselves? The color drained from her face. Behind her, Horace emerged from his study, still holding his belt. He froze when he saw the officers. Catherine appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale, her eyes meeting mine. In that moment, I saw it all. The fear, the shame, the desperate hope that somehow this could still be smoothed over. That Daddy could fix it. Detective Murphy's hand moved to his gun. So, I need you to put down the belt and step away from the stairs. I looked at my wife, at the woman I'd loved enough to ignore every warning sign. And I said the words I'd been rehearsing since strike number one. Catherine, it's over. All of it. And before anyone says another word, you should know that everything that happened in this house for the last 3 hours is recorded, backed up in multiple locations, and already in the hands of the state's attorney. So, I'd suggest everyone stay very, very quiet until your lawyers arrive. The silence that followed was broken only by Emma's crying, transmitted through my phone speaker, and Marjorie Hamilton's sharp intake of breath as she realized that her world, carefully constructed over 70 years of manipulation and control, was about to collapse entirely. The Hamilton estate's living room was designed to impress: vaulted ceilings, original artwork, furniture that cost more than most people's cars. But with Detective Murphy and Officer Rivers standing by the windows and an EMT team working upstairs with Emma, it felt less like a showpiece and more like a crime scene. Which, I supposed, was exactly what it was. I sat on the antique sofa, as far from Catherine as the room allowed, and watched Horace Hamilton try to control a situation that had already spiraled beyond his reach. The old man had aged a decade in the 30 minutes since the police arrived. His face gray and slack, but his voice still carried that imperious edge. "This is a family matter," Horace was saying to Detective Murphy. "Graham has always been dramatic. We were disciplining Emma for lying about breaking a vase. She needed to learn." "Mr. Hamilton," Murphy's voice was flat, professional. "I've been doing this job for 16 years. I've seen a lot of child abuse, and I've heard every excuse. So, let me save us both some time. Nothing you're about to say will make 47 lashes with a belt sound reasonable. In my day, it was still illegal. It's called assault. And since the victim is a minor, it's felony child abuse." I watched Marjorie. She sat ramrod straight, her hands folded in her lap. She hadn't spoken since the police arrived, but her eyes kept darting to the stairs, calculating, always calculating. Catherine stood by the fireplace, her arms wrapped around herself. She tried to approach me twice, and both times I held up a hand to stop her. I couldn't look at her without seeing Emma's face on that screen. Couldn't hear her voice without remembering, "Yes, Daddy, I'm sorry." The EMT who'd been upstairs, a competent-looking woman named Marina Schwartz, came down with her partner. She made eye contact with Murphy and gave a small nod. "Detective, we need to transport the child to Connecticut Children's. She's got 47 separate lacerations on her back and buttocks, 3 of them deep enough to need stitches. There's also bruising on her arms and legs, consistent with being forcibly restrained. She's severely traumatized and keeps asking if she's in trouble." Catherine made a sound like she'd been punched. I felt nothing. I'd used up all my feelings watching the video. "Mr. French, you should ride with your daughter," Schwartz said. "She's asking for you." I stood, and Horace moved to intercept me. "Now, wait just a minute. We have rights." No, my voice was quiet, but something in it made Horace step back. "You had rights. You had the right to be Emma's great-grandfather, to love her and protect her. You gave that up when you put a belt to her skin. So now you get to stand here and wait for your lawyers to tell you how badly you messed up your life. And I get to go take care of my daughter." I looked at Catherine for the first time since the police finished upstairs. "I'll call you with updates about Emma. That's all. Graham, please. I didn't know it would be that bad. I thought they were just going to talk to her." "You watched. The camera caught your voice. Catherine, you stood there and watched them whip our daughter 47 times and you did nothing. Is my father. I can't just—" "Yes, you can. That's what being a parent means." I turned to Murphy. "What happens now with them?" "We'll be filing charges. Felony child abuse for Mr. Hamilton, potentially for Mrs. Hamilton as well. Your wife's status depends on the state's attorney review. There's an argument for complicity, but also for coercion given the family dynamics." I nodded. "Whatever Mauricio decides, I'll cooperate fully." I left without looking back, following the EMTs to the ambulance. Emma was strapped to a gurney, her small body looking even smaller under the white blankets. When she saw me, her face crumpled. "Daddy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to break Grammy's vase. I promise I didn't mean to." "Shush, baby. None of this is your fault. You're not in trouble. You're never going to be in trouble." I climbed into the ambulance beside her, took her small hand in mine. I've got you now. You're safe. The ambulance pulled away from the Hamilton estate, sirens silent. Through the back window, I could see Horace and Marjorie standing in the doorway, Catherine between them. A tableau of a family that had just realized its power was an illusion. My phone buzzed. A text from Mauricio. Got the video files. This is ironclad. They had done. You okay? I typed back with one hand. Getting there. Thanks for moving fast. Always. Emma comes first. We'll bury these bastards. At the hospital, the intake process was familiar from my insurance work. Forms. Questions. A social worker named Pearl Meyer sat with me while the doctors examined Emma. She was gentle but thorough, and I appreciated that she didn't try to soften the reality. Your daughter is going to need significant therapy, Mr. French. This kind of trauma doesn't just go away. But kids are resilient, especially when they have a parent who fights for them. She paused. I have to ask, your wife isn't here. My wife is at her father's house. She witnessed the abuse and didn't intervene. Pearl's expression didn't change, but she made a note. I see. We'll need to coordinate with DCF about custody arrangements going forward. I want full custody. Emergency protective order, if possible. We can help with that. Given the circumstances, I don't think it'll be difficult to arrange. While Emma was being treated, I stepped into the hallway and called my mother. Donna French answered on the second ring. The relief in her voice when she heard mine was palpable. Graham, honey, I've been worried sick. Mauricio called me, told me what happened. How's my grandbaby? Physically, she'll heal. Emotionally, my voice cracked for the first time. Mom, they hurt her so badly. And Catherine just stood there. I know, baby. I know. My mother had never liked the Hamiltons. She'd told me from the start that they were poison. She'd been right. You bring Emma to me when she's released. I'll take care of her while you deal with this mess. I'm going to destroy them, Mom. Legally, socially, financially. All of it. Good. They deserve it. But Graham, don't lose yourself doing it. Don't become what you hate. I promised to call her with updates and hung up. The hallway was empty, except for a janitor mopping the far end, the squeak of bucket wheels echoing. I leaned against the wall and let myself feel it. The rage, the grief, the betrayal. Then I pushed it down, compartmentalized it. I'd learned that skill watching my mother work double shifts and still show up to my school plays with a smile. You dealt with your feelings later. Right now, you did what needed doing. My phone rang. Catherine. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. What? Graham, please. You have to understand. They are my family. They raised me. I know it was wrong. I know, but I froze. I couldn't stop. Just stop. I kept my voice level. I don't want to hear excuses. I want to know one thing. If I hadn't shown up with the police, if I'd actually been in Boston like you thought, what would you have told me when I got home? Silence. Catherine, what would you have told me? Her voice was small, broken, that she fell playing in the garden. Right. You would have lied to me again. Just like you've been lying every time Emma came home with bruises or seemed scared. How long has this been going on? It was never like this before. I swear. Just sometimes they'd spank her if she was bad. But nothing like, how long? Maybe 6 months. But Graham, it was just normal discipline. What they did to me growing up. I didn't think. I hung up. 6 months. 6 months of my daughter being abused, and Catherine had hidden it. Had participated in it. My phone buzzed again immediately. A text from Catherine, please don't do this. They are still my family. Daddy made a mistake, but we can fix this. For Emma's sake, we need to stay together. For Emma's sake. As if staying together with people who'd tortured his daughter was somehow in her best interest. I blocked Catherine's number. Then I called my lawyer, Ken Raymond, a sharp specialist in family law. Ken, I need you to file for emergency custody and divorce papers tonight, if possible. Ken didn't hesitate. I heard about what happened. News travels fast in legal circles. I'll have the papers ready by morning. Graham, this is going to get ugly. The Hamiltons will fight. Let them. I have video evidence, police reports, and a daughter with 47 lacerations on her back. They can fight all they want. Okay, I'll draft everything. One question. Do you want to pursue a civil suit against the Hamiltons in addition to the criminal charges? I hadn't thought that far ahead, but now that Ken mentioned it. Yes. For Emma's therapy costs, her pain and suffering, everything. I want them to pay for what they did in every possible way. Done. I'll coordinate with Mauricio's office on the criminal side. We'll make this airtight. After I hung up, I sat in a plastic chair outside Emma's room and pulled up my phone. The video was still there, backed up and secure. I forced myself to watch it again. All 47 strikes. Marjorie counting in that cold voice. Horace explaining between lashes. This hurts me more than it hurts you. Catherine's weak protests that died before they could become actual intervention. I needed to remember this. Needed to remember why I was about to tear apart my marriage and destroy my in-laws. Because in the days ahead, Catherine would cry, and her lawyers would paint me as vindictive. People who didn't know the full story would suggest counseling or reconciliation or what's best for Emma. This video was what was best for Emma, making sure it never happened again. Dr. Boyd Henson, the attending physician, came out of Emma's room an hour later. He was a weary-looking man in his 50s with kind eyes. Your daughter is going to be fine physically. We've treated and bandaged the lacerations. Most are superficial, but 3 required stitches. She'll be sore for a while, and there may be some scarring, but nothing permanent. I've prescribed antibiotic ointment and pain medication. Psychologically, Henson's expression darkened. That's above my pay grade, but I've called in a child psychologist, Dr. Faith Holder, who specializes in trauma. She's excellent. She'll be here in the morning to do an initial evaluation. He paused. Mr. French, I've been a pediatrician for 30 years. I've seen a lot of abuse cases. This one? He shook his head. 47 times while counting. That's not discipline. That's torture. I know. The people who did this, they're in custody. Not yet, but they will be. Henson nodded. Good. Kids who go through this, they need to know the adults who hurt them face consequences. It helps with the healing process, knowing someone fought for them. I was allowed to sit with Emma while she slept, one hand holding hers, my other hand scrolling through emails from Mauricio. The state's attorney was moving fast. Warrants were being drawn up for Horace and Marjorie's arrest. The video evidence was being entered into record. The DCF investigation was officially opened. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mr. French, this is Coleman Murphy. Just wanted to give you a heads up. We arrested Horace Hamilton about an hour ago. He's being charged with felony child abuse, second-degree assault, and risk of injury to a minor. His wife is being charged as an accomplice. They are both being held on $50,000 bail. They'll make bail. Oh, absolutely. But they'll be arraigned in the morning, and the judge will issue a no-contact order with Emma. They won't be able to get anywhere near her. And my wife. Murphy hesitated. That's trickier. The state's attorney is reviewing her involvement. There's an argument she was under duress. The Hamiltons have a documented history of psychological control over her. But there's also the argument that she had a duty to protect her child and failed to do so. What's your personal opinion? Off the record, she's complicit. She made a choice when she stood there and watched. But legally, proving criminal complicity when there's a pattern of abuse and coercion is tough. Mauricio will make the call. After Murphy hung up, I sat in the quiet hospital room and thought about Catherine, the woman I'd married, who'd been so damaged by her upbringing that she couldn't protect her own child. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her. The rest of me just wanted her gone. Emma stirred around midnight, her eyes opening slowly. When she saw me, she tried to sit up, then winced. Careful, sweetheart. You've got stitches. Daddy, are Grammy and Grandpa Horace mad at me? My heart broke. No, baby. They're never going to hurt you again. I promise. But I broke the vase. I deserved. Emma, look at me. I waited until her eyes met mine. Nobody deserves to be hit. Not for breaking a vase. Not for anything. What they did to you was wrong. It was against the law. Do you understand? She nodded slowly, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. The Hamiltons had spent months telling her this was normal, that this was love. It would take time to undo that programming. We're going to talk to some people who are really good at helping kids who've been hurt. And you're going to stay with Grandma Donna for a little while until our house is safe again. Is Mommy going to be there? The million-dollar question. I don't know yet, baby. We're figuring that out. I don't want to go back to Grammy Marjorie's house. You never have to. I promise you that. She fell back asleep, holding my hand, and I sat in the darkness, planning. The Hamiltons thought their money and status would protect them, that their lawyers would get them out of this. They didn't understand that I had spent my entire career dismantling the financial empires of people who thought they were untouchable. And I was just getting started. The arraignment was scheduled for 9 a.m. at the Connecticut Superior Court. I arrived early with Ken Raymond and sat in the gallery, watching as Horace and Marjorie Hamilton were led in, wearing yesterday's clothes, bail having been posted by their lawyer, Bridget Cheney. She was a sharp-dressed woman who'd built a career defending Connecticut's wealthy. Horace looked diminished, his usual commanding presence reduced to that of an old man facing consequences. Marjorie sat beside him, stone-faced, but I could see her hands trembling slightly. Judge Neva Schaefer, a no-nonsense woman with a reputation for harsh sentences in child abuse cases, reviewed the charges without expression, then looked at the Hamiltons. Mr. Hamilton, you're charged with felony child abuse, second-degree assault, and risk of injury to a minor. Mrs. Hamilton, you're charged as an accomplice to child abuse. How do you plead? Bridget stood. Not guilty on all charges, Your Honor. Bail has been posted, but I'm issuing a no-contact order. Neither of you are to go within 500 feet of Emma French, nor are you to contact her directly or indirectly. This includes through third parties. Do you understand? Your Honor, Bridget said smoothly. My clients are the child's great-grandparents. A blanket no-contact order seems excessive. Counselor, your clients are accused of whipping a 6-year-old child 47 times with a belt. I've reviewed the video evidence submitted by the state. Excessive is not the word I'd use to describe my order. Lenient might be more appropriate. Schaefer's voice could have cut glass. The order stands. Preliminary hearing is set for 2 weeks from today. Defendants are remanded on bail. As the Hamiltons were led out, Horace's eyes found mine in the gallery. There was no remorse in that gaze, only fury. The old man mouthed something that looked like, "You'll regret this." I smiled. Let him think that. Outside the courthouse, Mauricio caught up with me. That went well. Schaefer hates child abusers. She'll throw the book at them if this goes to trial. It won't go to trial. They'll try to settle. Probably, but the video is damning. Even with Bridget Cheney, they are looking at prison time. Good. I pulled out my phone, showed Mauricio a document. This is a civil suit my lawyer is filing today. $10 million for Emma's pain and suffering, therapy costs, and emotional trauma. Mauricio whistled. You're going scorched earth. They tortured my daughter. Yes, I'm going scorched earth. What about Catherine? That was the question I had been avoiding. Catherine had called 17 times since yesterday, left a dozen voicemails I hadn't listened to. She'd shown up at my mother's house this morning, but Donna had turned her away. I don't know yet. Ken's filing for emergency custody today. Divorce papers are ready to go, but I need to talk to her first. Be careful. Anything you say can be used in court. I know. That's why I'm recording the conversation. I drove to the house I'd shared with Catherine, a colonial in a nice neighborhood, bought with my money. While the Hamiltons' money sat in trust funds Catherine couldn't touch without her father's approval. Another control mechanism I'd been too blind to see. Catherine's car was in the driveway. I parked and sat for a moment, gathering myself. Then I activated the recording app on my phone and went inside. She was in the living room, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Her eyes red from crying. When she saw me, she stood up, hope and fear warring on her face. Graham, thank God. We need to talk about it. Sit down, Catherine. Something in my voice made her sink back into the chair. I remained standing, maintaining the high ground. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want honest answers. Not what you think I want to hear. Not what your father would tell you to say. The truth. She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. How long have Horace and Marjorie been hitting Emma? I told you, about 6 months, but it wasn't always like that. It was just spanking. That's what you said. Show me what you mean by spanking. She blinked, confused. What? Show me. Demonstrate how they did it. Catherine hesitated, then mimed a light swat. Like that. Just a tap. A tap doesn't leave bruises, Catherine. Emma's had bruises for 6 months. Try again. Her hands shook. Maybe harder than I thought. But Daddy said it was normal. That it's how he raised me. And I turned out fine. Did you turn out fine, Catherine? I kept my voice level, because from where I'm standing, you're a woman who's so terrified of a father that you let him torture your daughter rather than stand up to him. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Emma has 47 lacerations on her back. She's 6 years old, and she thinks she deserved it. She asked me last night if Grammy and Grandpa were mad at her. Not if she was okay, if they were mad at her. My voice rose slightly. So no, Catherine, I don't give a damn about fair right now. She was crying now, full sobs. I didn't know it would be that bad. I thought they were just going to talk to her. Maybe give her a spanking. But then Daddy got so angry, and Mother was counting, and I wanted to stop it, but I couldn't. I just froze. 47 times. You stood there for 47 strikes. At any point, you could have called the police. You could have grabbed Emma and left. You could have physically intervened, but you did nothing. You don't understand what it's like growing up with them. The control, the way they make you feel like you're nothing without them. You're right. I don't understand. Because my mother raised me to protect people weaker than myself, not to abandon them when they need me most. Catherine looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. So that's it? Our marriage is over because I made one mistake. One mistake. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Catherine, you've been hiding abuse for 6 months. You've been complicit in teaching our daughter that violence is love. This isn't one mistake. This is a pattern of choices. And every single one of them put your father's approval above our daughter's safety. I can change. I'll go to therapy. Oh, you are going to therapy. It's part of the custody agreement Ken is filing today. You will have supervised visitation with Emma, and only if your therapist signs off on it. Her face went white. You're taking her away from me. You helped them hurt her. What did you think would happen? Graham, please. She's my daughter. Then act like it. The words came out sharper than I intended. I took a breath, forced myself back to calm. I'm filing for divorce. You can fight it if you want, but the evidence is against you. You'll get visitation, but I'm going for full custody. And if you contest it, then we go to court, and a judge watches the video of you standing there while Emma screamed. How do you think that plays out? Catherine stood up, suddenly angry. You enjoying this? You've always hated my family, and now you get to destroy them. I'm protecting my daughter. If you can't see the difference, that proves I'm right to divorce you. Fine. Her voice was cold now, the vulnerability replaced by something harder. But you should know Daddy's lawyers are looking into you. They're going to argue that you're abusive yourself. I almost laughed. Let them try. I've got nothing to hide. Can your father say the same? What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm very good at finding financial irregularities, Catherine. And I've been looking into Hamilton Pharmaceuticals. There are some interesting discrepancies in their foundation's tax filings. Donations that don't quite add up. Expenses that seem inflated. Her face went pale. You're bluffing. Am I? Your father has been using the family foundation as a slush fund for years. Luxury business trips. Personal expenses written off as charitable donations. Shell companies that exist only on paper. The IRS is very interested in people who abuse non-profit status. You wouldn't. You tell Horace that if he comes after me in court, I'll bury him. The criminal charges are just the beginning. I'll have federal investigators crawling through every aspect of his business. By the time I'm done, the Hamilton name will be synonymous with fraud and child abuse. Catherine stared at me like she'd never seen me before. What happened to you? You used to be kind. I'm still kind to people who deserve it. Your family lost that privilege when they put a belt to my daughter's skin. I pulled an envelope from my jacket. These are divorce papers. Sign them, or don't. Either way, this marriage is over. You have 48 hours to move your things out of this house. After that, the locks get changed. I left without waiting for a response, got to my car, and drove back to my mother's house where Emma was staying. Only when I was parked in the driveway did I let myself feel it. The grief of my marriage ending. The rage at Catherine's betrayal. The bone-deep weariness of having to be strong when all I wanted was to break down. But I didn't, because Emma needed me strong. Inside, my mother had made pancakes, and Emma was sitting at the kitchen table with Dr. Faith Holder, the child psychologist, drawing pictures. She looked up when I came in, and her small face broke into a smile. Daddy, Dr. Faith says I can use all the colors I want. That's great, sweetheart. I kissed her forehead, careful to avoid the bandages under her shirt. Faith caught my eye and gestured to the hallway. I followed her out, and she spoke in a low voice. She's doing remarkably well, all things considered, but she's exhibiting signs of trauma conditioning. She keeps asking if she's in trouble, if people are angry with her. It's going to take time to undo that programming. Whatever she needs. Good. I'd like to see her 3 times a week for the next month. Then we'll reassess. And Mr. French, you're doing the right thing. Kids need to know that adults will protect them, even when it's hard. The next few days were a blur of legal proceedings. Ken filed for emergency custody and divorce. The civil suit against the Hamiltons moved forward. Mauricio called to say that the criminal case was airtight. Bridget Cheney was already making noise about a plea deal, and I started my own investigation into Hamilton Pharmaceuticals. It was almost too easy. Horace had been sloppy, overconfident in his untouchability. The family foundation had been used as a personal piggy bank for years. Luxury vacations written off as charity conferences. Family members on the payroll for no-show jobs. Artwork purchased at inflated prices from dealers Horace had personal relationships with. But the real prize was deeper. Hamilton Pharmaceuticals had been involved in a drug trial 3 years ago, testing a new painkiller. The trial had been discontinued after adverse effects were reported, but the raw data had been buried. Patients had been paid settlements with strict NDAs. I found the patients, found the settlements, found the buried data. I compiled it all into a neat package and sent it anonymously to both the FDA and an investigative journalist named Art Jang, who specialized in pharmaceutical industry corruption. Then I waited. The explosion came faster than I expected. R.J. Jang's article dropped on a Wednesday morning. Hamilton Pharmaceuticals buried dangerous drug trial data, paid patients for silence. By Wednesday afternoon, federal investigators had opened an inquiry. By Thursday, Hamilton Pharmaceutical stock had dropped 20%. By Friday, Horace Hamilton had been subpoenaed to testify before a congressional committee. Mauricio called, half impressed and half concerned. Did you have anything to do with the Hamilton Pharma story? I might have pointed a journalist in the right direction. Graham, you need to be careful. If this looks like retaliation, it's not retaliation. It's justice. Horace Hamilton built his empire on lies and buried bodies. I just helped bring that to light. The Hamiltons are going to know it was you. Good. Let them know. Let them understand what happens when you hurt my daughter. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. You've made a very big mistake. Horace's voice was tight with fury. You think you can destroy my family, my company. I think I already have. How's your stock price looking? This isn't over. I have resources you can't imagine. Connections. Power. Past tense. Your connections are melting away as we speak. Nobody wants to be associated with a child abuser and a fraud. I raised Catherine. She's my daughter. Emma is my great-granddaughter. This is a family matter, and you've turned it into a circus. You lost the right to call it a family matter when you committed a felony 47 times. Horace, did you lose count? Or was the counting part of the fun? The silence on the other end was profound. Then I'm going to take everything from you. Your job, your reputation, your daughter. Try it. But while you're making threats, remember that I'm a forensic accountant who specializes in finding fraud, and you've been committing fraud for decades. So ask yourself, do you really want to go to war with me? Because I promise you, I'm just getting started. I hung up before Horace could respond. My mother found me in the kitchen afterward, staring at my phone. You okay, honey? Horace called. Made threats. You recording it? Of course. Donna squeezed my shoulder. Your father would be proud of you, standing up for Emma like this. I had been 5 when my father died. A heart attack, sudden and brutal. I had only fragments of memories, but I remembered him teaching me to stand up to bullies, to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. I hope so. Sometimes I worry I'm going too far. Too far, baby? They whipped your daughter 47 times. There's no such thing as too far when it comes to protecting your child. She was right, and the Hamiltons were about to learn just how far I was willing to go. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for Monday morning, but the weekend brought new developments. Bridget Cheney called Ken Raymond Saturday afternoon, requesting a meeting to discuss a plea agreement. They want a deal, Ken told me over the phone. Probably trying to avoid trial now that the pharmaceutical scandal is breaking. What are they offering for Horace? Guilty plea to reckless endangerment. Suspended sentence. Probation for Marjorie. Charges dropped in exchange for testimony against Horace. I felt my jaw clench. No prison time. It's a first-time offense technically, and their elderly judge might go for it. Absolutely not. They don't get to walk away from this. Graham, I understand you're angry, but no deals. They go to trial or I release the full video to the media. Ken was quiet for a moment. You're playing hardball. They tortured my daughter. This is what hardball looks like. I called Mauricio next, who sighed heavily when I explained the situation. The state's attorney has final say on plea deals, not you. But you can influence the decision. Mauricio, if they get a slap on the wrist, what message does that send? That rich people can abuse children and buy their way out. I agree with you. But the reality is juries are unpredictable. The Hamiltons have expensive lawyers. There's a risk we go to trial and lose. Have you watched the full video? All 47 strikes? Heard Emma screaming? Heard Marjorie counting like she was keeping score? Yes, Graham. I've watched it multiple times. It's boned into my brain. Then you know no jury would let them walk. Not if they see what I saw. Another pause. Let me talk to my boss. No promises, but I'll push back on the plea deal. That evening, I sat with Emma while she worked on a puzzle at Donna's dining room table. The bruises on her arms had faded to yellow-green, and the lacerations were healing, but I knew the invisible damage would take longer. Daddy, Dr. Faye says I can draw how I feel instead of talking about it. That sounds good. Have you drawn anything? She nodded and pulled out a piece of paper from her backpack. My heart sank when I saw it. A stick figure labeled me cowering under dark scribbles, while 2 larger figures stood over her. One held a brown rectangle, a belt. Dr. Faye says the scade feeling will go away eventually. Is that true? Yes, baby. It takes time, but it will get better. When can I go back to school? Emma had been out of her first-grade class for a week. I told the school there was a family emergency, but news traveled fast in small communities. I knew people were talking. Soon. We just want to make sure you're ready. I miss my friends, but I don't miss Grammy and Grandpa Horace. You don't have to see them again if you don't want to. Good. She went back to her puzzle, her small hands fitting pieces together with intense concentration. Daddy, are you and Mommy getting divorced? The question hit me like a punch. What makes you ask that? Mommy called Grandma Donna. I heard Grandma say you were done with her. She looked up at me with those wide, innocent eyes. Does it mean Mommy doesn't live with us anymore? I knelt down beside her chair. Emma, your mom and I are having some grown-up problems. It's not your fault, okay? None of this is your fault. Is it because I broke the vase? No, sweetheart. It's because Mommy made some choices that hurt you, and I can't forgive that. But no matter what happens between me and Mommy, we both love you very much. If you love me, why didn't Mommy stop them? Out of the mouths of babes. I struggled to find an answer that a 6-year-old could understand. That wouldn't poison Emma against her mother more than Catherine had already poisoned herself. Sometimes grown-ups are scared, too. Mommy was scared of her daddy, and that fear made her make bad choices. But that doesn't make it okay. Emma thought about this, fitting another puzzle piece into place. I don't want to see Mommy right now. Is that bad? No, baby. That's not bad at all. You get to decide when you're ready. Sunday morning brought the call I had been half expecting. Catherine's lawyer, a family law specialist named Cruz Curio, wanted to meet to discuss custody arrangements. We met at a coffee shop in neutral territory. Curio was a smooth operator, the kind of lawyer who specialized in high-net-worth divorces and custody battles. Mr. French, Curio began. My client is prepared to be reasonable about custody. She acknowledges she made mistakes, and she's willing to accept a 60-40 split, with supervised visitation for the first 6 months. No, Curio blinked. I'm sorry. I want full custody. Catherine gets supervised visitation contingent on therapy completion and sign-off from Emma's psychologist. Non-negotiable. Mr. French, despite what happened, Catherine is still Emma's mother. No judge is going to award you full custody unless there's evidence of direct abuse. She witnessed felony child abuse and did nothing. She's been hiding abuse for 6 months. She lied to me repeatedly. That's evidence. The state's attorney hasn't charged her with any crime yet, but they could. I have her on video standing there watching. I have a recording of her admitting she's hidden abuse for 6 months. I leaned forward. So, here's what's going to happen. Catherine agrees to my terms, or I push Mauricio to file charges against her as an accomplice, and I release the full video to the media with her voice clearly audible, explaining to her father that she's sorry for questioning him. Curio's professional mask slipped for a moment. You're vindictive. I'm protecting my daughter. If you can't see the difference, you're in the wrong profession. Catherine could fight this claim. You're being controlling. That you provoked the abuse. With what evidence? My job is legitimate. My income is documented. I have zero history of violence or abuse. Meanwhile, Catherine comes from a family of documented child abusers, enabled that abuse, and has been financially dependent on her father her entire adult life. I stood. Tell Catherine she has until tomorrow to agree to my terms. After that, I go nuclear. I left Curio sitting there and drove to the storage facility where I'd been keeping evidence. Over the past week, I'd compiled everything I could find on the Hamiltons, financial records, old news articles, testimony from former employees of Hamilton Pharmaceuticals. The picture that emerged was of a family built on control and cruelty. Marjorie had been sued twice by former housekeepers for verbal abuse. Horace had settled multiple workplace harassment claims. The Hamilton Foundation, supposedly dedicated to children's health, had spent more on administrative costs than actual charitable work. I had sent packages to the IRS, the Connecticut Attorney General, and 3 different investigative journalists. By the time the criminal trial started, the Hamiltons would be fighting fires on multiple fronts. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You've destroyed my family. I hope you're proud. Catherine. She must have gotten a new phone after I blocked her old number. I typed back. You destroyed our family when you let them hurt Emma. I'm just dealing with the aftermath. Daddy's going to lose everything because of you. No. Daddy's going to lose everything because of Daddy. I just helped speed up the process. I'll never forgive you for this. I don't need your forgiveness. I need you to sign the divorce papers and leave Emma alone until you've dealt with your issues. No response. I pocketed my phone and went back to sorting evidence. Monday morning, Mauricio called with good news. The state's attorney rejected the plea deal. We're going to trial. The video was too damning. My boss said any prosecutor who let the Hamiltons walk would be crucified in the press. Good. When? Trial date is set for 6 weeks from now. We're pushing for expedited proceedings given the severity and the video evidence. What about Catherine? We're still reviewing. The problem is proving criminal intent versus arrest. She'll likely face charges of failure to report child abuse, which is a misdemeanor, but getting felony charges to stick is tough. Make it stick. She had dozens of opportunities to protect Emma and chose her father instead every time. I'll do what I can. But Graham, you need to be prepared for the possibility that Catherine walks with probation. If she does, I want it documented in the custody proceedings. Every last detail. After the call, I drove to Emma's school to meet with her teacher and the principal. They needed to know what was happening before Emma returned to class. Principal Levern McKinney, a competent woman in her 50s, listened to my explanation without interruption, her expression growing more horrified as I detailed the abuse. My God, poor Emma. How is she doing? She's healing physically. Emotionally, it's going to take time. Of course. We'll make sure she has whatever support she needs when she returns. And the people who did this, they're being prosecuted. Yes, trial starts in 6 weeks. Good. McKinney's voice was firm. I've been in education for 30 years, Mr. French. I've seen too many cases where abusers face no consequences. The fact that you're fighting for your daughter, that matters. Emma's teacher, Miss Stacy Bird, was younger, more emotional. She'd had Emma in class in September and had noticed some behavioral changes recently. She became more withdrawn, more anxious. I thought it was just adjustment to first grade, but now, she trailed off. I should have seen it. I should have said something. You couldn't have known, I said, though part of me wondered if that was true. How many signs had everyone missed because the Hamiltons were wealthy and respectable? When she comes back, I'll keep a close eye on her. If there's anything she needs, anything at all, you let me know. I thanked them and left. As I drove back to my mother's house, my phone rang. Bridget Cheney. Mr. French, we need to talk. I don't think we have anything to discuss. My clients are prepared to make a significant financial settlement in the civil suit. $7 million. No admission of guilt. Not interested. Mr. French, be reasonable. That's more money than... I don't care about the money. I care about justice. Your clients are going to trial, and they're going to prison. And then I'm going to take every penny they have in civil court. Not 7 million, 10 million plus punitive damages. Plus the satisfaction of watching them lose everything. You're making a mistake. The Hamiltons have resources. Had. Past tense. Have you seen the news about Hamilton Pharmaceuticals? The stock is down 40%. The FDA has frozen their drug trials. Congress is launching an investigation. By the time I'm done, the Hamilton resources will be a pile of legal bills and criminal fines. Cheney's voice turned cold. You're destroying innocent people's lives. Employees who have nothing to do with this. Shareholders. Charities that depend on Hamilton Foundation grants. Horace Hamilton destroyed those things when he built his empire on fraud and buried drug trials. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. And Bridget, if you're worried about your reputation being tied to child abusers, maybe you should drop them as clients. I hung up before she could respond. That evening, I sat with Emma while she ate dinner. Chicken nuggets and fries, her favorite. She'd gained back some of the weight she'd lost, and there was color in her cheeks again. Daddy, Grandma Donna says we might move to a new house. Is that true? Maybe. Would you like that? Can I have a pink room? You can have any color room you want, sweetheart. And a swing set. Absolutely. She smiled, and I felt something loose in my chest. This was what mattered. Not the legal battles, not the revenge, not the satisfaction of watching the Hamiltons burn. This, my daughter smiling, feeling safe enough to think about swing sets and pink bedrooms. Everything else was just means to an end. My phone buzzed. A text from Ken. Catherine signed the custody agreement. She's agreed to all your terms. I closed my eyes and let myself feel relief. Emma was safe. Legally, officially safe. Now I just had to make sure the people who'd hurt her paid the full price. The trial of Horace and Marjorie Hamilton began on a cold Tuesday morning in late February. I had taken the day off work. I'd been working reduced hours anyway, splitting time between Emma's therapy appointments and building my case against the Hamiltons. The courtroom was packed. News of the case had spread, especially after Art Jang's articles about Hamilton Pharmaceuticals had gone viral. The combination of child abuse and corporate fraud had turned the Hamiltons into a media sensation, and not the kind they were used to. I sat in the front row with Mauricio, watching as Horace and Marjorie were led in. They'd aged visibly in the 6 weeks since their arrest. Horace's usual commanding presence had collapsed into something smaller, more desperate. Marjorie still held herself with rigid dignity, but I could see the cracks. Judge Schaefer took the bench, and the proceedings began. Mauricio's opening statement was simple and devastating. He described the abuse in clinical detail, promised to show the jury video evidence, and painted the Hamiltons as wealthy elitists who believed their money and status put them above the law. Bridget Cheney's opening statement attempted to reframe the narrative. Horace and Marjorie were old-fashioned grandparents who'd made an error in judgment, who genuinely believed they were disciplining Emma for her own good. They were products of a different era when corporal punishment was considered normal. I watched the jury's faces as Bridget spoke. They weren't buying it. The prosecution's case moved swiftly. The EMTs testified about Emma's injuries. Dr. Henson described the lacerations and bruising in medical terms that made several jurors flinch. Detective Coleman Murphy walked the jury through the arrest, the evidence collection, the recorded phone calls where Horace had made threats. And then, on day 3, Mauricio played the video. The courtroom fell silent as Emma's screams filled the air. I had watched this video dozens of times, but it never got easier. I forced myself to keep my eyes on the jury, watching their reactions. Horror, disgust, anger. One woman covered her mouth, fighting tears. Marjorie's voice on the audio, counting, 32, 33, Horace, breathing hard. You will learn to obey. Catherine. Catherine's voice, weak, Daddy, maybe we should be quiet, Catherine. The video ended. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Mauricio let it breathe for a long moment. Then, the defense will tell you this was discipline. I ask you, at what number did it stop being discipline and become torture? Was it strike number 10, 20, 30, or was it always torture from the very first time Horace Hamilton raised his belt to a 6-year-old child? Bridget tried to cross-examine the witnesses, tried to create doubt, but there was no recovering from that video. The evidence was too stark, too brutal. On day 4, I was called to testify. I'd been dreading this, but Mauricio had prepared me well. Mr. French, can you describe your relationship with your daughter? Emma is everything to me. I've been her primary caregiver since birth. I work from home 2 days a week so I can do school pickups. I coach her soccer team. I read to her every night. And your relationship with the defendants? Strained. They are very controlling, very focused on appearances and obedience. I tried to maintain a relationship for Catherine's sake, but it became clear they saw Emma as property to be managed, rather than a child to be loved. When did you first suspect Emma was being abused? I described the bruises. Catherine's explanations. My growing concern. I described setting up the nanny cam, watching the live feed, the sickening realization that my worst fears were true. What went through your mind when you saw the abuse happening in real time? Terror, rage, and then clarity. I knew I had to be smart about this, that boasting in without evidence would let them hide behind their money and lawyers. So, I called the police and made sure everything was documented. Bridget's cross-examination was aggressive. Mr. French, isn't it true you've had a contentious relationship with the Hamiltons since you married their daughter? I wouldn't say contentious. They're controlling, and I don't like people trying to control my family. And isn't it true you've been conducting a vendetta against the Hamilton family, leaking information to journalists, filing frivolous lawsuits? Objection. Mauricio said. Relevance sustained. Judge Schaefer said. Miss Cheney, the civil suit and any alleged media leaks are not on trial here. Bridget shifted tactics. Mr. French, you installed a hidden camera in your daughter's backpack without your wife's knowledge or consent. Doesn't that strike you as deceptive? I was trying to protect my daughter. If that's deceptive, I'll own it. And you didn't think to communicate with your wife about your concerns. I tried. Catherine dismissed them. She was more concerned with pleasing her father than protecting Emma. That's speculation. No, it's documented fact. I have recordings of our conversations where she admitted as much. Bridget realized she was digging a hole and moved on. By the time I stepped down, I felt wrung out but satisfied. I told the truth, and the jury had listened. The defense's case was weak. Bridget called a child psychologist who testified that corporal punishment, when applied correctly, could be an effective discipline tool. Mauricio's cross-examination destroyed her. Doctor, in your professional opinion, is 47 strikes with a belt applied correctly? She stammered and qualified until she'd contradicted her own testimony. Bridget called character witnesses, people who testified that Horace and Marjorie were pillars of the community, generous philanthropists, loving family members. But Mauricio had done his homework. He produced testimony from former Hamilton Pharmaceuticals employees about Horace's verbal abuse, from former household staff about Marjorie's cruelty, from charity directors who confirmed that the Hamilton Foundation was more interested in tax breaks than actual charitable work. By the time closing arguments rolled around, the verdict was inevitable. Mauricio's closing was powerful. The defendants want you to believe this was discipline gone too far, a momentary lapse in judgment. But I ask you to consider the evidence. This wasn't a momentary lapse. It was calculated, systematic torture. Marjorie Hamilton counted each strike 47 times. She kept score while her husband brutalized a child. That's not discipline. That's sadism. Bridget's closing tried to generate sympathy. These are elderly people who made a terrible mistake. They are products of a different era. Sending them to prison serves no purpose. They are no danger to society. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they came back, I held my breath. On the count of felony child abuse, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of second-degree assault. Guilty. On the count of risk of injury to a minor. Guilty. Horace's face went gray. Marjorie sat still, but I saw her hands shaking. Judge Schaefer set sentencing for 2 weeks out and remanded the Hamiltons to custody pending sentencing. As they were led away, Horace looked at me one last time. There was no fury now, just defeat. Outside the courthouse, I was mobbed by reporters. I gave a brief statement. Justice was served today. My daughter is safe, and the people who hurt her will face consequences. That's all that matters. Mauricio pulled me aside afterward. That was a slam dunk. Schaefer's going to throw the book at them. I'm predicting 5 to 7 years for Horace, 3 to 5 for Marjorie. Good. There is one more thing. The state's attorney decided to charge Catherine with failure to report child abuse. It's a misdemeanor, but it'll be on her record. Will she do any jail time? Probably not. Suspended sentence, probation, but it'll affect the custody proceedings. I nodded. I'd won. Emma was safe. The Hamiltons were going to prison. Catherine would face consequences. So why did I feel so empty? The sentencing hearing 2 weeks later was brief. Judge Schaefer was merciless. Mr. Hamilton, Mrs. Hamilton, I've been on the bench for 22 years. I've seen a lot of child abuse cases, but I've never seen anything quite like this. The premeditation, the systematic nature, the sheer cruelty, it's beyond comprehension. She sentenced Horace to 7 years in state prison. Marjorie got 5. Both would be eligible for parole after serving 70% of their sentences, but given their ages, Horace was 78, Marjorie 76. They might die behind bars. I hope, Schaefer said, that you spend every day of your incarceration thinking about what you did to that little girl. And I hope you realize that the pain you caused can never be undone. They were led away in handcuffs. I watched them go and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just a kind of hollow completion. Catherine's sentencing was scheduled for the following week. She pleaded guilty to failure to report child abuse and received 2 years of probation, mandatory therapy, and a fine of $10,000. The judge also issued a formal finding that she'd been complicit in the abuse, which was immediately used in the custody proceedings. I didn't attend her sentencing. I had nothing left to say to her. The civil trial took place in April. My lawyers presented the evidence of Emma's injuries, her ongoing therapy costs, the psychological damage that would require years of treatment. They presented expert testimony about the long-term effects of childhood trauma. The jury awarded Emma $12 million in damages, $10 million compensatory, $2 million punitive. Hamilton Pharmaceuticals filed for bankruptcy 3 months later. The FDA investigation had revealed systematic fraud, and the company was drowning in lawsuits from patients harmed by the beggar drug trial. The company's assets were liquidated to pay settlements. The Hamilton estate was sold to satisfy the civil judgment. The family foundation was dissolved after the IRS found massive tax fraud. The Hamilton name, once synonymous with wealth and philanthropy in Connecticut, became a cautionary tale. I took no pleasure in it. I'd set out to destroy the Hamiltons, and I'd succeeded beyond my expectations. But destroying them didn't undo what they'd done to Emma. Nothing could undo that. 6 months after the trial, I sat in Dr. Faith Holder's office while Emma had her session. Faith had been seeing Emma 3 times a week since the abuse, and the progress was slow, but real. She's doing well, Faith told me afterward. The nightmares are less frequent. She's engaging more with her peers at school. She's starting to understand that what happened wasn't her fault. Starting to understand after 6 months. Trauma rewires the brain, Graham. It takes time to rewire it back. But Emma has something a lot of abuse victims don't have. A parent who fought for her, who believed her, who made sure her abusers face consequences. That's incredibly healing. What about Catherine? Emma's been asking about her. What does Emma want? She says she misses her mom, but she's scared to see her. That's natural. Catherine represents both love and betrayal. Emma needs to work through that at her own pace. Faith leaned forward. Have you thought about what you'll say if Emma wants to resume contact? I don't know. Part of me wants to say no, to protect Emma from any more hurt. But the therapist side of my brain knows that's my anger talking, not what's best for Emma. Catherine's in therapy, too. She's doing the work, and she's been consistent about respecting the custody agreement. No attempts to circumvent the visitation restrictions. No manipulation. That counts for something. I sighed. I know. I look at Emma and I see what Catherine allowed to happen, and I want to keep her as far away as possible. Which is understandable. But Emma isn't you. She might need a relationship with her mother to heal, even if that relationship looks different than before. The supervised visitation sessions started in May, 6 months after the abuse. I wasn't present. A court-appointed supervisor handled the meetings. Emma reported back afterward. Mommy cried a lot, Emma said after the first visit. She said she was sorry. How did that make you feel? Sad, but also, I don't know, a little better. The visits continued weekly. Catherine was compliant, appropriate, focused entirely on rebuilding trust. I got reports from the supervisor. No manipulation, no attempts to undermine my custody, no excuses or deflection, just apologies and age-appropriate interaction. Against my better judgment, I found myself softening slightly, not toward forgiving Catherine, that was still beyond me, but toward accepting that Emma might need her mother in some capacity. In July, I bought a new house. It was smaller than the colonial I'd shared with Catherine, but it had a big backyard and enough space for Emma to have her pink bedroom and the swing set she'd asked for. Emma helped me pick out furniture, paint colors, decorations. It was therapeutic for both of us, building something new from the wreckage of our old life. Donna came to visit often, and Emma adored her grandmother. Grandma Donna never makes me feel scared, Emma told me one night. She makes me feel safe. That's what grandmas are supposed to do. Not all of them, though. No, not all of them. In August, I got a call from a lawyer I didn't recognize. Roderick Burke, calling on behalf of Horace Hamilton. Mr. French, my client would like to apologize to you and your daughter. Tell your client he can apologize to the parole board. He's dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. He is perhaps 3 months. I felt nothing, and he wants to make amends before he dies. He's asking if you would consider bringing Emma to see him so he can apologize in person. Absolutely not. Mr. French, I understand your anger, but no, you don't understand. My daughter wakes up screaming from nightmares about what your client did to her. She flinches when she sees men with belts. She's 6 years old, and she's been in intensive therapy for 8 months. So, no, Horace Hamilton doesn't get a deathbed redemption scene. He gets to die knowing he destroyed his family and traumatized his great-granddaughter. That's all. I hung up. Horace Hamilton died in prison 6 weeks later. I didn't tell Emma. I saw no reason to. Marjorie was released on medical parole 3 months after that. Her lawyer argued that her advanced age and declining health made her a minimal risk. She moved to a nursing facility in Florida, paid for by what little remained of the Hamilton assets. I heard she tried to contact Emma once, a letter that the court-appointed supervisor intercepted. It was full of the same manipulation I remembered. She was sorry if Emma had been hurt, but they'd only been trying to help her become a better person, and didn't even miss her. The letter was destroyed. Emma never saw it. 1 year after the trial, I sat in my backyard watching Emma play on her swing set. She was 7 now, taller, more confident. She still saw Dr. Faith weekly, but the sessions were more about managing anxiety than processing acute trauma. Catherine pulled up in the driveway. She'd been granted unsupervised visitation 2 months ago after her therapist and Emma's both signed off. The visits were limited to 4 hours twice a month. Always during daylight, always with my knowledge. Emma ran to her mother, and Catherine scooped her up, holding her tightly. I watched from the porch, ready to intervene if needed. But the interaction was healthy. Normal, even. Catherine walked over after Emma ran back to the swing set. Hi. Hi. We stood in awkward silence. We hadn't had a real conversation since the divorce was finalized. She's doing well, Catherine said finally. She is. I know I don't get to take credit for that. I know that's all you and your mom and Dr. Faith. I didn't argue. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Catherine continued. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know, therapy has helped me see how badly I failed her. Failed both of you. And I'm trying to be better. For Emma's sake, I hope you are. I know you hate me. I would too in your position. But Graham, thank you for not cutting me out of her life completely. I know you could have. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for Emma. She needs to know that her mother chose to change, that people can get better, otherwise she'll think she's doomed to repeat the cycle. Catherine nodded, blinking back tears. I heard about Daddy, that he tried to contact you. He wanted to apologize. I said no. Good. He didn't deserve forgiveness. It was the first time I'd heard Catherine speak against her father without immediately backtracking. Maybe she really was changing. Mother sends letters sometimes, Catherine said. I don't read them. My therapist says I need to establish boundaries, that I spent my whole life being controlled by them. That's good advice. I'm selling the trust fund assets, what's left of them. I'm donating it all to child abuse prevention charities. I don't want their money. I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in months. She'd lost weight, aged, but there was something different in her eyes. Something clearer, more grounded. That's a good thing to do. Emma called out, Mommy, watch this, and did a flip off the swing. Catherine rushed over, making sure she was okay, praising her courage. I watched them together and felt something shift. Not forgiveness. I wasn't there yet. Might never be there. But maybe acceptance. Acceptance that Catherine was doing the work. That Emma needed her mother. That healing was possible even after betrayal. Later that night, after Catherine had left and Emma was asleep, I sat on the porch with a beer and let myself feel it all. The rage had faded, replaced by something more manageable. The Hamiltons were gone. Horace dead. Marjorie exiled. Their empire dismantled. Catherine was rebuilding herself, slowly, painfully. Emma was healing. I'd won. Emma was safe. The abusers had been punished. Justice had been served. But victory felt different than I'd expected. It wasn't triumphant or satisfying. It was just quiet. A sense of something finished. A chapter closed. My phone buzzed. A text from Mauricio. So the news about Horace. How are you doing? I typed back, I'm okay. Emma's doing well. That's what matters. You did good, man. Not many people would have fought like you did. I did what any father should do. Yeah, but not every father does. I put my phone away and looked up at the stars. Somewhere in a nursing home in Florida, Marjorie Hamilton was probably plotting her comeback, still convinced she'd done nothing wrong. Somewhere in Connecticut, Catherine was probably in therapy, working through decades of damage. Somewhere in heaven, or hell, or nowhere at all, Horace Hamilton was gone. And here in this backyard, Emma was safe. She was healing. She was loved. That was the only victory that mattered. 18 months after the trial, I got a call from R.J. Jang, the journalist who'd broken the Hamilton pharmaceutical story. Mr. French, I'm working on a follow-up piece about the Hamilton case. I was hoping to interview you. What kind of follow-up? Looking at the broader implications. How the case exposed systematic abuse in wealthy families. How the legal system failed Emma initially because of the Hamilton status. How your actions sparked reform. Reform? You haven't seen? Connecticut passed new mandatory reporting laws last month, largely because of Emma's case. Teachers, doctors, therapists, they all have enhanced training now on identifying abuse in affluent families. The laws informally called the Emma French Protection Act. I felt my throat tighten. I didn't know. It's a direct result of your fight. You didn't just save your daughter. You potentially saved hundreds of other kids whose abuse might have been overlooked because their abusers were wealthy and respectable. The interview ran in October. Art had done his homework, interviewing Dr. Faith, Detective Murphy, Mauricio, even some of the jurors from the trial. The article painted me as a hero, something I still wasn't comfortable with. You did what was necessary, Mauricio told me when we met for coffee. You didn't just react emotionally. You were strategic. You documented everything. You used your skills to expose the Hamiltons' fraud. That's not revenge. That's justice. Sometimes it felt like revenge. Maybe it was both. But so what? They deserved it. I thought about that. About the line between justice and revenge. Between protecting my daughter and destroying her abusers. In the end, maybe it didn't matter what you called it. What mattered was that Emma was safe. In November, Catherine asked if Emma could spend Thanksgiving with her. Just the two of us, she said. I want to cook her favorite foods, watch movies, just be her mom for a day. My first instinct was to say no, but Emma had been asking about it, and Dr. Faith thought it might be good for their relationship. One day, you bring her back by 7 p.m. Thank you, Graham. I won't let her down. And she didn't. Emma came home happy, full of Catherine's cooking, talking about how they'd made pumpkin pie together and watched 3 Disney movies. Did you have fun? I asked. Yeah, Mommy's different now. She listens more. She doesn't get scared when I talk. That's good, sweetheart. Daddy, do you think Mommy can come to my birthday party? Emma's first birthday party since the abuse would be in January. I've been planning something small, just family and a few school friends. Do you want her there? Yeah, I think so. If that's okay. If you want her there, then she can come. Emma hugged me fiercely. You're the best daddy ever. The birthday party was a success. Emma turned 8, surrounded by people who loved her. Me, Donna, Catherine, her school friends, Dr. Faith, who'd become almost like family. Catherine stayed in the background, appropriate and supportive, not trying to overstep. As I watched my daughter blow out her candles, making wishes I hoped would come true, I realized something. I'd spent the last 18 months focused on destroying the Hamiltons and protecting Emma from Catherine. But the real victory wasn't their destruction. It was this. Emma, laughing, surrounded by love, feeling safe enough to make wishes. That was what I'd fought for. And somehow, despite everything, I'd won. 2 years after the trial, I was invited to speak at a conference on child protective services. The topic was overcoming institutional barriers in high-profile abuse cases. I almost said no. Public speaking wasn't my thing, and I didn't want to exploit Emma's trauma for personal gain. But then I thought about the Emma French Protection Act, about the hundreds of kids who might benefit from improved reporting laws, about the therapists and teachers in the audience who might learn something that would help them save a child. I said yes. The conference was in Boston. I stood at the podium, looking out at 200 faces, and told Emma's story. I didn't spare the details. The video, the 47 strikes, the Hamiltons' arrogance, the system's initial reluctance to believe that wealthy, respectable people could be abusers. The thing about privilege, I said, is that it creates blind spots. The Hamiltons' money and status made people assume they were good people. Teachers missed signs. Doctors gave them the benefit of the doubt. Even I, in the beginning, tried to rationalize what I was seeing because they seemed so normal, so respectable. I talked about the importance of documentation, of trusting your instincts, of being willing to blow up your life to protect a child. People have called me a hero, I said. I'm not. I'm just a father who did what needed to be done. The real heroes are the teachers and therapists and doctors who see the signs and report them, even when it's uncomfortable, even when the abusers are powerful. The standing ovation afterward made me uncomfortable, but several attendees approached me with stories of their own. Cases they pursued, children they'd saved, families they protected. One woman, a DCF worker named Rochelle Snow, shook my hand, tears in her eyes. I had a case last year. Wealthy family, lots of connections. The parents were furious when I reported them, but I thought about your daughter, about how you fought for her, and I stood my ground. That kid is safe now because you gave me the courage to not back down. On the flight home, I looked out the window at the clouds and thought about Emma. She was doing well, still in therapy, but thriving in school, making friends, laughing again. Catherine was a consistent presence now, supervised visitation having transitioned to regular custody time. We'd never be a nuclear family again, but we'd found a new normal. The Hamiltons were gone. Horace dead. Marjorie in a nursing home. Their empire dismantled. I had gotten everything I wanted. Justice. Safety for Emma. Punishment for the abusers. But what I hadn't expected was how many lives had been changed by Emma's case. The laws that were passed. The children who were saved because teachers and doctors had better training. The families who got help before abuse escalated because the reporting system had been improved. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Daddy, when are you coming home? I miss you. I smiled and typed back. 3 hours, sweetheart. I miss you, too. Below, through breaks in the clouds, I could see the patchwork of cities and towns. Thousands of families living their lives. How many of them held secrets like the Hamiltons had? How many children were suffering in silence? I couldn't save them all, but maybe by saving Emma and making sure the Hamiltons face consequences, I'd created a blueprint for others to follow. That would have to be enough. When I got home, Emma was waiting on the porch with Donna. She ran to me, and I scooped her up, holding her tight. How was your trip? Good. I told a lot of people about how brave you are. I wasn't brave, Daddy. I was just scared. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared, sweetheart. It means you keep going even when you are scared. And you're the bravest person I know. She hugged me tighter. I love you, Daddy. I love you, too, Emma, more than anything in the world. Later that night, after Emma was asleep, I sat in my office and pulled up the video file one last time. I'd watched it dozens of times in the early days, using it to fuel my rage, to remind myself why I was fighting. But now, 2 years later, I watched it differently. I watched it and saw not just the abuse, but the moment I'd chosen to fight, the moment I decided that protecting Emma was worth any cost. I closed the file and deleted it from my computer. The copies were backed up with my lawyers, preserved as evidence, but I didn't need to watch it anymore. I knew what I'd done. I knew why I'd done it. And I knew that I'd do it all again without hesitation. The Hamiltons had thought their money and status made them untouchable. They thought they could torture a child and face no consequences. They'd learned otherwise. And somewhere in courtrooms and conference rooms, in therapy offices and classrooms, the ripples of that lesson were still spreading. Justice wasn't always clean or satisfying. It was messy and complicated. And sometimes it cost you everything. But for Emma, for my daughter who was safe and healing and laughing again, it had been worth it. Every single moment. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to fight a battle no one else seemed to see? Tell me what you think in the comments. I really want to know.